Here.
Tina Champ, and Jonathan Cleaver.
Present.
Okay, we'll start tonight's discussion with an update on the refinancing and debt restructuring plan. This was previously brought to the Finance Committee, and PFM and RBC Capital shared with the board and the Finance Committee the potential refinancing of opportunities that are available to the district. JJ, if you could move to the refinancing overview.
Yes. Are you able to see that?
Yes. Can you just scroll up to the top? So, and scroll just a little bit down to number 2. So again, the PFM and RBC had already presented information to the Finance Committee earlier in regards to potential refunding opportunities for the district's debt issues. What they are proposing is that in the future, the board pass 2 resolutions. The first resolution, which would prepare the district for the possibility of refinancing the series of 2015 and the 2015A bonds. They would structure that resolution so that they could refinance those bonds in 1 or more phases, depending on the market. And what that would entail would be taking the older, higher interest rates on the existing bonds, the 2015 and 2015A, and replacing them with newer, lower interest rates, which would result in debt service savings for the district. The opportunities to refinance will depend wholly on the district's credit rating, the future market conditions, and any potential changes in federal tax law. So while the board would approve the resolution at a future meeting, the resolution would not tie to the board to any kind of financing. What would happen would be the resolution, if approved by the board, would then allow RBC and PFM to go out to the market when the bonds become callable and see if there's an opportunity for lower interest rates for the school district. If they could negotiate lower interest rates, they would then bring that back to the board, and the board would sign additional documentation to bind the board to those new interest rates. The resolution simply give the board authorizes PFM and RBC at the time at which bonds would become callable and therefore eligible to be refinanced, gives them the opportunity to go out to the market at that time and bring back rates to the board for a final decision. So that would be the first resolution. That would be to set the district up to refinance series of 2015 and then the 2015A bonds. The second resolution would prepare the district for debt restructuring designed to provide short-term budgetary relief in fiscal year end 2021 and 2022. What this would do, it would identify certain maturities of a number of the outstanding series of debt payments over the next 24 months, and it would, in essence, push those payments out further. What that does is it creates short-term budget relief, but it does have an understanding overall long-term cost. My recommendation would be that you would only do these 2 resolutions if the board is committed to staying on track to getting the district back up to operating where revenues meet expenditures and they're no longer operating at a deficit, and that they're starting to build back up to the reserves to what the market requires and what PDE recommends. If you would approve resolution number 2 and push your debt service out further and not be able to then with resolution 1 refinance the series of 2015 and 2015A to level out where that was pushed off. So in essence, it only works if you can attain good financing under both of these resolutions. Because resolution number 2 is the short-term resolution that would take care of pushing maturities out a little further, that just gives you short-term debt savings. If taking those short-term debt savings at the end of fiscal year 2022, the district's not in a better financial position, then the district's not going to be in a position to take advantage of resolution number 1 and get better interest rates on 2015 and 2015A. And if that would happen, the district would actually put themselves in a worse position, even though they took 2 years of short-term savings. And then in that third year, the short-term savings make sense if in that third year the district has financial strength again, and then can take advantage of the market to get the savings on the 2015 and 2015A that would correct pushing the debt out for the short-term savings. So resolution number 1 wouldn't occur probably until 2021, but resolution number 2, because it relates to short-term debt savings, would likely need to be executed over the next few months. And there's a timeline that we will put on the website and we will push out to the board after this meeting. In discussions with PFM and RBC as to how to prepare the district to take advantage of both of these opportunities, because you can't take resolution number 2 in my recommendation if you don't feel confident you're going to be in a good position to take advantage of resolution number 1. You would only go down this refinancing route if you knew that the district was going to be in a position of financial stability that would allow the savings to come from refinancing under resolution number 1, which would be the series of 2015 and 2015A. So there is savings for the district in the short term, and there is savings for the district long term if the financial stability can be regained and maintained. And again, this relates to, the district has a rating from Moody's. They have, the underwriters will look at that rating, and that really determines the district's interest cost. So if the district's rating does not continue to go up, that will have a negative impact on our ability to refinance. The debt restructuring is meant as part of a multi-year recovery plan so that the short-term budget savings are used either for one-time costs or used to build back up the fund balance to a level that, at least a positive level. If the one-time savings, the short-term savings would be utilized for ongoing costs, the district is just putting themselves again in a worse financial position. RBC and PFM wanted to warn the district that it should not lower its debt service budget going forward because of the short-term debt restructuring of 2021 and 2022. The debt restructuring is only designed to provide one-time savings in fiscal year 2021 and 2022. And after that, the district's debt service budget would go back up to its current level, which is approximately $3.795 million. That's a lot of information, but I wanted to, share that so the board can start thinking about whether or not they want to move forward with these resolutions. And again, it would be 2 different resolutions. And what it does is it authorizes your investment advisors to go out and negotiate a deal to refinance your debt service at lower rates. Again, the resolution number 2 would be short-term relief for 2021 and 2022. However, for that, in my opinion, for that resolution to make sense, you would have to be committed to maintaining financial stability so that resolution number 1 could come to fruition of savings for the district, so that pushing out the 2021 and 22 short-term savings, pushing those maturities out further, can be rectified with the debt savings that could be negotiated under resolution number 1. I know that was a lot of information, but I'll take any questions. And if the board feels necessary, RBC and PFM can, dial back into another meeting and further discuss what these 2 resolutions would be. But again, they were I believe it was a June meeting that they presented their refinancing potential of these 3 issues. This is just the next step in the process, which would be the board getting the resolutions.
This is Nathan. Everything there looks good to me. I do agree. I think it's something we should move forward with, and also appreciate your emphasis on how vital it is for us to make sure that we can follow through with the second refinance. Making this a good long-term plan and not just a short-term solution.
Ms. Danicola, this is Rita. My question is, do you feel confident that we can maintain that stability? In other words, the short-term relief that we're going to get, that should remain as fund balance, correct? That should not be used.
I would recommend that that be used to bring fund balance to a positive level, or if needed for one-time expenses, whether it be technology or something that's not an ongoing expense. If the district stays on the path that I feel I have laid out for the district, then I would strongly recommend both of these resolutions. But that comes with adhering to policies I've put in place, willingness to say no on expenditures. Throughout my time at the district, I've said no more times than I've said no to my 2 children. You have to maintain strong spending controls and strong controls over contract negotiations and things like that, so that what's negotiated the district can afford, and what's spent is spent on what the district needs, not necessarily what everybody wants. So spending on necessities versus nice to haves. I think you're going to be in that position for a number of years to continue to have strict spending guidelines and continue going out to bid, and all of the policies I've put in place, continue to follow those to control the spending so you maintain that financial stability moving forward. Then I would say both of these resolutions make sense and will help the district get through, the financial struggles related to COVID and more.
So now what is the timeline? What would the deadline be for this?
So JJ, can you go to the second page? And if you scroll down, so we've, PFM has, information from the district in regards to financial information that would be required. During the month of August, PFM would then draft the preliminary official statement. They would also send out that statement for a credit rating and bond insurance. At August 24th would be the adoption of 2 separate parameters resolutions. And what they build into those resolutions would be the max cost to the district. So the district would see that before approving it. Then the week of September 7th or 14th, there would be a ratings call with Moody's and a due diligence call with PFM, RBC, and Moody's in regards to the financing. That rating from Moody's usually takes about a week to come back. That would then give PFM and RBC the idea of how viable the refinancing opportunity would be in the market based upon that credit rating. At that point, they would finalize and print the final offering statement, share that with the board, and then they would, through the week of September 21st or 28th, if those timelines all fell in, they would go out to market to get the pricing and the interest rate lock, then come back to the board at the end of October, early November, with all of the appropriate documentation that the board could then solidify what they were able to find in the market. So you would do the resolution that allows them to go to the market, and that then starts the clock with Moody's and getting all the ratings and getting all the offering documents together. Then they would come back the end of October or early November, and the board would then decide yes or no, do we move forward with this refinancing? So the resolution authorizes them to go out to the market back, and then at the end of October or early November, they would come back to the board with the settlement documents, and the board would then decide, do we move forward or not?
Is there a cost to until we get to the point as to whether we find out if we can do it or not? In other words, are there any fees from now until October when we have to do it?
Generally, there is not. I will verify that with both RBC and PFM. Generally, they do not charge you fees if you decide not to move forward, but I can verify that with them and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Nathan again. Am I understanding correctly then that one Moody's rating would be established for this issue, and then another would be established 2 years down the road when we have the
Correct.
opportunity to refinance the whole bonds.
Correct, because Moody's does not rate the issue, they rate the issuer, which is the Lehighton Area School District. So they will be rating the credit profile of Lehighton Area School District.
Okay.
And that happens every time you would go out either for a new bond or a bond refunding or refinancing.
Okay.
Does the committee have any other questions on the resolutions?
Nothing else for me.
Okay, would you like PFM and RBC to move forward with creating those resolutions for a future board meeting?
I would say yes.
Yes, for me also.
Okay,
Definitely.
so what will happen then is PFM and RBC will create those, with bond counsel will create those documents, and then they will be shared with the full board prior to whenever they would be approved by the board. The next item on the agenda is just a recap of fiscal year 2019-20. Fiscal year 2019-20 ended June 30th. We are still bringing in invoices related to 2019-20. So I wanted to give the board an update as to where 2019-20 stands as of now. The 2019-20 expensive as of August 5th were $40,824,453.17. There is $291,894.01 in charter school tuition invoices that have since come in that relate back to 2019-20. There are 403B contributions for retirees of $221,188. There is a final bill for 2019-20 for Lehigh Carbon Community College of $15,122.75. There is $110,000 to Georgia's Transportation, which was previously discussed at a previous finance committee meeting, and that related to the payment to Georgia's Transportation related to the shutdown of COVID-19. There are bills to the Borough of Lehighton of $10,635.98. There are construction-related bills related to the elementary center and the closeout of those projects. $32,869.05 to Phillips, $45,369.88 to J.R. Reynolds, and then $13,264.30 to EI Associates. There is a payment due to Concerned Treatment Center of $119,330.10. There are some other small vendor invoices from a myriad of different vendors, whether it be for supplies or smaller items that total $33,424.06, and then the food service fund transfer of $25,000. So all of these invoices come in after year end. This is not uncommon. What I wanted to do is bring to the board, as early as possible, what the closeout of 1920 is going to look like. So as of August 5th, and I updated this, today, I don't expect that we will see any additional large expenditures come in that will greatly impact this number. So the total estimated expenditures as of June 30th, 2020 are $41,742,551.30. The estimated revenue for 2019-20 was $41,799,472.37, and that was revenue that was earned through June 30th. So the estimated net surplus to the district as of today, based upon these expenditures that are still coming in, would be $56,921.07, which means the district did not spend more than they took in. However, what I want to caution is that the revenue through June 30th of $41,799,472.37 has two very large one-time revenue items in that. What that means, it was revenue in 2019-20, but those revenue items don't continue to 2021. So there was tuition from other local educational agencies, that would be other local school districts, of $1,102,167.74. Those were tuition billings related to 2017, 18, and prior years that were not sent out to school districts in a timely fashion, We corrected that in 2019-20. And at that point, when it was determined it was unbilled and we did send the bills out to the school districts, it at that point became revenue to the district. That revenue was a one-time revenue source for 19-20. Though, while we will still get tuition revenue if students are placed within our district, it will not be to this $1.1 million level as it was in this year, because it was a one-time catch-up for years where tuition wasn't properly billed out or timely billed out. There also was the proceeds from the sale of Schull David and Franklin Elementary. That was $817,974. So 2 revenue sources in 19-20 that won't continue in 2021 or future years. If the district had not had those 2 one-time revenue sources, the revenue would have been $39,879,330.63. That number compared to what the estimated expenditures will be of $41.799 million would have been a use of fund balance of $1,863,220.67. So at this point, while through today, through 8/10, the district, it appears, will have operated at a small surplus for 2019-20. This surplus was only generated due to one-time revenue received of almost $1.92 million. If that revenue had not occurred, those one-time revenue numbers had not occurred, the district would have operated at a loss of $1,863,220.67. JJ, if you could scroll down a little bit. Just looking forward, the 2020-21 estimated expenditures of $41,056,215 are 1.8% less than the actual 2019-20 expenditures. And moving forward, revenue and spending must continue to be closely monitored to ensure the district spends within available revenue streams. I highlight the revenue streams because the Lehighton Area School District is not immune, just like every other school district is not immune to the effects or the unknown effects of the pandemic of COVID-19. There could be, future economic shutdowns, which could curtail earned income tax revenue to the district or other local revenues to the district. At this point, no district can predict what will happen because we don't know what, this post-pandemic world, what it looks like. So throughout, looking forward through every month, every week, there's going to have to be a close monitoring of the revenues that are coming in and the spending, so the district can continue to operate within its means. I will say that based upon the estimated expenditures for 2019-20 of $41.7 million, I think it's very attainable that the district can operate within the realm of the $41,056,215 in estimated expenditures in the 2021 budget. So a mix of good and bad news. Good news is it looks like we will end at a surplus, which from a credit rating is going to be, a tremendous positive. But that positive was generated, from the negative side on one-time revenue sources that we don't have to rely upon in 2021. So we just have to be very careful as we move forward that we're spending within, that estimated expenditure amount of $41,056,215. So I just wanted to give like a recap of 19-20. The year ended June 30th, but we're still processing invoices. And as the year closes out, I just wanted to give the Finance Committee and the board just a quick snapshot of, as of today, where I think we'll end up for 19-20. And then looking forward, how can we, what do we continue to monitor so that we stay on this, financial stability level to enable those refundings that we just talked about to make sense.
Patty, this is Nathan. Am I remembering correctly also that part of the tuition reimbursement from other educational entities, that part of that has not been received yet, correctly? So it's still shown as accounts receivable for us? Correct.
The tuition from other LEAs, there is a large portion that is still receivable from local school districts. The superintendent is currently working with the other superintendents to have those bills paid in a timely fashion. So they are revenue to the district and are currently receivable. A portion of that is currently receivable on the district's balance sheet. So in future years, that will bring in cash flow to the district, but it's not going to bring in revenue to the district because the revenue is recorded at the point that the invoices are sent out.
Understood. Thank you.
Pat, do we have a couple, if there's any other questions from the committee members this time?
No further questions for me.
Okay, we'll move to questions from the attendees.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Bradley?
Before we take questions, I'm going to respectfully ask that, as this will be my last Finance Committee meeting, that people speak respectfully and keep the meeting on a professional level, not the unprofessional level that most meetings have been in the past. I'm just going to ask for professionalism in these discussions. Mr. Bradley, you have some questions? Mr. Bradley, those resolutions, as I discussed, were not yet prepared. They would be prepared at the request of Finance Committee. The refinancing are not incurring additional debt. It is refinancing debt. So it's not additional debt being incurred, it's refinancing of the debt. And as I said during this meeting, the refinancings, in my recommendation, would only make sense if both resolutions were viable within the market. And that would be contingent upon both the public market and also the district's own financial stability and credit rating. Mr. Bradley, get to your point, please. Mr. Bradley, it's the series of 2015 and the 2015A. You have the documentation in front of you. I'm not going to be belittled on my last finance committee meeting. You have the information in front of you. So get to your point, please, because we do have a board meeting at 7 p.m. That's our new word of the day. Mr. Bradley, it's not my decision. It is the board's decision. I'm sharing information. I shared the information, I think, in a clear and understandable way. You will now take those words and twist and manipulate it to whatever you would like to portray. And that's fine. You have the right to do that. Do you have any additional questions, or would you like to just speak to more manipulation? Well, to be very blunt, Mr. Bradley, it won't be me going down this path because this is my final finance committee meeting, much to your liking. So congratulations.
We have additional comments. Again, we were respectfully asked to be professional. Brian?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Nicola, who is JJ? I keep hearing you refer to JJ and I don't know who that person is, so I apologize.
Mr. Cleaver, superintendent.
Okay, thank you. So, your proposals or your resolutions are really only going to be key if we do both of them and we show that we can manage our money. How will we know in 2 years if we're going to be financially in a stable position?
That's a good question. If the district continues to spend within their available revenue streams, then the district will be in a position to take advantage where the two combined would make sense. Individually, resolution number 2, in my opinion, on its own does not make sense. But if the district operates within its means and then in 2 years can take advantage of resolution number 1, then combined, they make long-term sense to the district. But if you can't take advantage of that, a viable refunding of the 2015 and 2015A, then just doing resolution 2 does not help the district in a long-term fashion. It only does a short-term help, but a long-term hurt.
Okay, thank you. I have a bunch of questions, so I'll try to get through them quickly. I apologize, and I appreciate your answers. I'm new to the whole school board thing. I'm just starting to get involved here. I'm not sure that you've been here all that long. Is there anything in your time that you've spent with the school district that leads you to believe that we can do what you're asking and spend within our means?
I would say yes, because I demonstrated we can spend within our means, but it did not come without a lot of hard work and a lot of questioning what we were spending on. A lot of, there was a significant amount of oversight on spending within the district over the past year. There was a lot of no's that were said. There were policies or procedures put in place, not policies, but procedures put in place to ensure that the district was taking advantage of public bidding, public contracts, getting additional quotes from different vendors so that we can hold our vendors accountable. And I will tell you that over this past year, we got much stronger pricing because we went out to bid, took supplies out, as a bid and didn't buy them individually. So there is the ability to continue to operate within that realm of, staying within budget and closely watching revenue streams and making adjustments as needed. It will mean that going forward, there's still going to be tough decisions the board will have to make. But if they keep the eye on what the revenue is that's coming in, expenditures going out, I think the district can get to a point where they are financially stable year after year, and are not further, dipping into what now has become a negative fund balance.
Patty, can you please just touch on for Brian the new information the board has gotten since you've been here as far as revenue and expenses with their board
Correct.
packets, which they haven't had in the past?
In the past, when I started back in March of 2019, I was, getting my, head around like, how did the district end up in the position that I was seeing and how did they not notice it? One of the things I noticed that the district was not always receiving as part of the board was not always receiving as part of their monthly board packet, revenue information. They were just receiving expenditure information. In my opinion, you can't make, decisions on spending if you don't know what your revenue streams are. So we made sure that revenue reporting went out on a monthly basis. We also broke expenditures down into different formats. So the board could see everything on what the state calls the function level, but then also broke it down on an object level. So the district could see the 100 object code, all salaries for all employees. This is what our budget is. This is what we're expending. We tried to give more information throughout the year as to, where the district was financially. And again, there was also, a lot of procedures that were put in place to help control the spending. There was kind of like an open-ended account with an office supply provider that within a month after, I took the position at the Manhattan Area School District, I curtailed that open-ended account with the office supply provider because I didn't feel it gave strong enough controls to the spending. So we did a lot of little things, we did a lot of big things. And I think if those things continue, the district can stay on the right path.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your optimism. I unfortunately do not share that optimism just with what we've seen in the past. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there. What is the cost to use RBC and PFM to the district? I know you said you didn't think there was a cost to run all the way up and get to October, but you weren't sure. And
they do have costs, but they're usually paid out of the refinancing, or if you're doing a new bond, out of the bond proceeds. All of those costs are disclosed once they go out to market, and before the board would bind itself to that agreement, they would see all of those costs.
Okay, but you'll have the costs, if any,
correct,
up to and including not using them in end of October, early November, and that will be presented to the board. Is that correct? Because I think that question was asked as to the cost, and you said you didn't think there was one, but you would look into it. However, we've now decided to move forward with preparing this and presenting it to the board without knowing that cost.
We can definitely have PFM. So generally speaking, in the past, the investment advisors do not charge a fee if a district chooses not to move forward. However, because the pandemic, COVID, everything has kind of changed everything. I don't know if that procedure is still the same. So I will verify that with PFM, and if the board would like, we can have PFM and RBC on the board meeting where a potential resolution would be on the agenda, so they could answer those questions directly.
I think that would be very important. Thank you. What was the $110,000 that we owed to George's from your budget?
So this was previously discussed with the Finance Committee. Under Act 13 of 2020, it allowed for school districts to keep transportation contractors, what they generally referred to as whole, meaning to keep the transportation contractors in a position that kept them as a viable option going forward. So they didn't have a bunch of, transportation contractors shutting down and then schools have nobody to transport the students. Georgia's Transportation did bring forth an amount to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee had indicated that while they would entertain a payment to George's, it would be at a lesser amount. So that was the $110,000.
May I ask what amount was asked for?
I don't have that in front of me right now.
Okay. And I know that the question of transportation had came up, and We said we weren't doing transportation. We took the money out of the budget because of COVID, but let's be honest, if COVID didn't hit, we wouldn't have had the money for transportation anyway. Is Georges working with us at all since we've agreed to pay them $110,000 to not operate their buses and have no overhead?
I'll, Patty, is it okay if I answer
Yep,
that?
go ahead.
So we've been working with Leon on a daily basis, trying to put a plan together to offer transportation to where a plan will be presented to the board and a cost of what that would look like. In addition, when we were shut down, Georgia's Transportation did deliver lunches to our students on the outlying areas. So we worked with him with that as well during that time. So we have been in constant contact with Georgia's Transportation, and he continues to work with us. And we're looking at options and what our plan now for reopening may look like and what that cost will be to the district. Now the cost, even though minimizing some of the runs by doing a hybrid model at the secondary level, doing the K-8 model that we have, it may increase some. So overall, our savings, so to speak, from what we paid last year would come probably in the area of fuel and not so much in the area of, bus runs. In addition to that, there's also going to be additional cleaning and different requirements from him, as far as sanitation and timing, where drivers will have to highly disinfect, their buses after runs as well. But we're currently working on that right now with him, and hopefully we can get that information to the board shortly.
Okay, thank you. One more question, and then I'll save the rest for the board meeting. Ms. Denicola, you talked about all the great things that you've put in place since you've been here and the new processes and the new packets and all of that stuff, but you're leaving us. What's going to guarantee that these things stay in place when you leave to keep us on the right track? As you had mentioned, FY21, it looks like our expenditures are approximately going to be down 1.8%, but our overspend, as you clearly pointed out, was 1.8 million. That's not going to cover 1.8%.
I will tell you that the budget that was put forth for 2020-21, the revenue that was in there was some one-time revenue in 2021 as well, as it related to CARES Act funding, and that the board was made aware of that at our finance committee meetings. It will be the revenue sources. If local revenues come in at the rate that they're budgeted, if EIT doesn't drop off or anything like that, the revenue will be there to support the expenditures as the expenditures are budgeted. But if we overspend our budgets, I don't foresee additional revenue sources coming in to make up for that overspending.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Ms. Bose?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Patty, what is our Moody's rating right now?
I did just have hold on, let me pull up our latest. Do you have any other questions, Barb, while I'm looking?
Yeah. Given the fiscal irresponsibility of the board and apparently the administration in the past, how can we guarantee that this won't happen again? Especially if we add debt. The current 15A bond goes out 28 years to 4043. Now, it's generally recommended not to go out on a bond more than 20 years, because in 20 years, you're going to have to do major renovations to anything you built. Generally. We all know what happened with the high school. Look at all the cost overruns there because it was not built properly to begin with. My other question is, generally, when your bond rating is reduced, not only do you pay higher interest if you go with a new bond or try to refinance a bond, but your costs are always, almost always, generally quite a bit higher. Is there any idea on, given our bond rating, given our financial position, how far down Moody's is going to drop it again and what those costs would be?
Barb, what I can tell you is the latest rating from Moody's was July 11th of 2019, and that's where the district was downgraded to A3, and the outlook was revised to negative.
Right.
I have had discussions with Moody's in the, just a few weeks ago in regards to, 2019-20, what it was looking like closing out as, and then shared with them the 2021 preliminary budget as well. I don't know what that will do for their outlook. It may be possible that they raise the outlook to stable or positive, but there would be another credit opinion issued should the district move forward.
So there has been no credit opinion issued since last year.
Not since last year, and I did have a discussion with them. Sometimes those discussions will lead to a new credit rating, but that was just a very recent discussion with them.
Okay, now, do they look at past performance when they do a credit rating?
They do. They look at past performance, and they also look at what they believe to be the future performances. And a lot of that is based upon, discussions with the administration, steps the board has taken, whether or not it be, curtailing spending, passing balanced budgets, spending within budgeted means. They look at all of those pieces together.
Okay, now, while that occurred in the last year or so, there's no guarantee that the next business administrator will continue to do that. Now, when I looked at your what's it called, organizational chart, you were, as a business administrator, were pretty far down on the list. I believe there were 7 administrators above you. And of course, the superintendent, as administration goes, the buck stops with him. Now, I looked at the AFRs, and I looked at the budgets presented, and it was clear that we were overspending significantly. And yes, I know everything's a year behind, but that was clear, even with not receiving all the reports that you have provided to the board. And that certainly could have been looked at by the current board and the previous board to see. And each time the budgets were signed with the fund balance being used to balance the budget. I don't have any confidence in this particular board being able to hold to the spending parameters. I just don't, and I don't think adding $2 million to the budget is a good idea. Now, previously, our debt service was, I thought, about 3 million. Is it really closer to 4 million? I don't have this stuff in front of me.
Barb, to your comment as to, I appreciate your diligence in looking at past, past reports. I did a lot of that in, the short period of time that I was here. I will say that, while things went unnoticed, as far as the spending patterns were happening, I do feel that I've given a lot of information and a lot of training to the board as to what fund balance is and what it isn't. I've spent a lot of time talking about, items that were spent in prior years but not budgeted for, and the importance of only spending what's budgeted for. So I would be hopeful that, the district will continue on a positive path. There's no doubt some, poor decision-making happened in the past. Some of those decisions, the district is living with those decisions now. But I do think the district can, continue to move forward on a positive level. I think there's a better understanding now of the finances of the district. So I would be hopeful that the district can continue to move forward in a positive fashion.
And I agree with you. I would also be hopeful for that. But when people have been on the board for 10, 12 years and have not gotten that, I don't see it happening now. I would hope that they do understand. And they do look, and they do provide oversight. And certainly the report you're given gives a better understanding of all that. But being on the board and voting for budgets for all those years, I find it difficult to understand why that would not have been understood by these people prior to. But that's not for you to answer, and I thank you for your time, and I wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Ms. Salerno?
Hi, Mrs. Denicola, I want to say thank you, and I'm sad, and others are sad, and you may not hear it. I think you were terrific for our district. I think you had the guts to stand up to people that needed to be stood up to. You made the hard choices and weren't afraid to make them. So I, for one, with many, are sad to see you go, and I wish you well as well. Just wish you were staying here with us. But I have a question as far as that charter school amount from, I think it was 292,000. Is that from this past year, or is that going into the current school year? Right there.
That would be for enrollments during 2019-20.
Okay, so that's last year.
Correct. Yep. So those are additional invoices that come in. You know, they do a reconciliation at the end of every year, and they catch up their billings, and we reconcile that they are billing us for students that were actually ours, and there's a balance due to some of them.
Okay, so looking at that number based off last year, what numbers are we looking at for the 2020, 2021? Because according to social media, half, if not more than half the district are pulling their kids and going into charter schools. Do we even know where we're at so far with that number?
Well, we have a budgeted number. Obviously, that's based upon, you know, what enrollment was for 1920, and also what the, you know, historical uptick in that enrollment had been for the district. Obviously, that is one expenditure line item that will need to be closely monitored. If there are a number of new enrollments, then that would negatively impact the district's budget.
Correct.
But I know the administration has been working on their own virtual academy, and hopefully we would ideally, if, you know, parents are not comfortable sending their student to a brick and mortar setting, that they would look to Lee Heighton's cyber offering of LAVA.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's parents posting all over social media that they've emailed guidance counselors, they've emailed principals, they've emailed whoever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and they're not receiving responses back. So I don't know if we're not getting them. I don't know if we're ignoring them. Maybe something should go out to the parents. If you have emailed us and have not heard from us, please email us back, because I want what's best for my kids, and I want what's best for everyone's kids. And communication is the key that's going to keep the calmness down. But if we're looking at $291,000 from last year, that could easily be $600,000, $900,000, $1 million.
Yeah, and Ms. Salerno, that's just the year end. There, that line item is much more than that, correct, Patty? When we're looking at total for the year.
Oh, correct. Yeah, those are just final reconciliation bills.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I was going to touch base and say we are contacting any, you know, parent anytime we get information or requests regarding cyber school and individuals being possibly pulled out of the district. Administration at the building level is reaching out to those parents and sharing what we have, and also being contacted from June Potts, our LAVA instructor, to let them know we have information updated. And as of today, we have about 200 students who are looking to do a different option other than face-to-face education. But that is through our programs, not through other schools.
So 200 students, not through LAVA, through other options.
No, 200 students through LAVA and or the synchronous one with the Zooms, to where they could see the instruction taking place.
So do we have a number as to how many have actually opted out and going to other charter schools?
At this point, we have the most updated one is about 25 students that we're aware of that we're currently contacting right now.
25, 25.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
My next question, and please correct if this is wrong. So if a parent signs a student up for a charter school, not LAVA, an other charter school, and the child goes for a day, a week, a month, and decides they want to come back to whatever type of school with Lehighton, is it true that Lehighton has to pay that charter school for the whole entire year?
That is not true. The
Okay.
They would bill, a lot of them kind of bill in advance of the month. Like at the beginning of the month, we have 20 students enrolled. At the next month, and we have a reconciliation process within our business office, that from a student accounting perspective, we verify that the student is, one, a student of our district, and two, is a student that is still attending that school and has not re-enrolled at Lehighton or has not moved and gone to another school. So that's where that would be caught, that if the student was at a charter school in September, and then in October they re-enroll at our middle school or high school or our elementary school, we would then look to make sure that the charter school corrected that on their next monthly bill.
Okay. And one last thing, as far as all the extra sanitation that's going to be needed, there are grant monies out there, whether it be on a local, state, or federal level, correct?
Yes, there are grant monies in addition to some of the CARES Act money we've received. It was for cleaning materials as well, and also technology, but we are aware of a lot of additional sanitation type products that are going to be needed, and a lot of that was built into the CARES money. And anytime it was allotted to be done, that Patty did a great job making sure that the needs will be met for that.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Mrs. Denicola. Like I said earlier, I appreciate you, and others did appreciate what you did for our district.
Thank you, Ms. Salerno. That means a lot to me. It is bittersweet that I'm leaving Lehighton, because I do feel I put a lot of good procedures in place, and I think I could help the district move even further forward. But unfortunately, an opportunity arose that was just a better opportunity for me at this point in my life.
Mr. Kemmer?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll be real quick. I have 4 quick questions. The first is the payment for the treatment center. What is that? What is that exactly for?
That is, and Mr. Cleaver, if you could just provide a little more.
The Concerned Treatment Center is the facility we have in our district, and we are required to meet the needs of the educational needs. Jim Thorpe also had one recently. But since then, we are required to pay for the educational component because it's within our district. In addition to that, since Patty's been here, one of the other things we've been able to bill tuition costs. For example, we get a lot of kids from the Reading area that may be placed there. And so Ms. Denicola was able to research that. And so some of that is part of that tuition that you see listed down there from other LEAs as well. But that will end because that Concerned Treatment Center has since closed. So
the Concerned Treatment Center was a placement, a court placement. They would place individual students at the Concerned Center while those individuals would be placed there, because it was within our school district. Under school code, we are required to educate those students through the agreement the district had with Concern. There was a teacher and an aide and various things that were on site at Concern for the education of those students. So that's what that payment would relate to. The district was legally obligated to provide the educational services. However, that cost will not be there going forward, because as of the end of the school year, the Concerned Treatment Center closed its doors within the Lehighton Area School District.
So Ms. Are we going to be able to accommodate these kids, or are they were not going to be in our district?
These students were actually placed at other homes outside of the Lehighton Area School District.
Okay, perfect. So my next question is the 2 resolutions. How will this lock us into the RFM and RVC if we adopt these 2 resolutions? Is this something where we're just locking ourselves into their service?
They have been the district's investment advisors for a number of years. If the district would like to make a change, and find new investment advisors, they could do that. But PFM and RBC have been the district's advisors for quite a long period of time.
All right, perfect. And Patty, this is for you. You had said in the past, like past decisions, the next business administrator will be have to live with these decisions. Do you believe that approval of these two resolutions, would that affect the next business administrator's decision making by tying his hands or her hands going forward? Or if you were walking into this type of situation, would you rather have that decision made between you and the previous business administrator, or do you think that you feel comfortable with making that decision before they come in?
I would feel comfortable walking into whatever decision making the district board had made. I think, I gave my recommendation as to how, in my mind, these resolutions would make sense. I know if I had stayed at Lehighton, I would have made a recommendation that both resolution number 1 and number 2 move forward, because I think I would have, been able to keep the district on a path of financial stability, albeit there would have been tough decisions that, would need to be made to stay within, our spending to meet the revenue that was coming in. I think we would take the steps necessary to make sure resolution 1 would make sense. As far as whether that harms the next business manager, I don't think it unduly harms the next business manager. It may set them up for future positive, because there is a plan laid out, a plan of financial stability and a plan of generating short-term savings, but then making sure that the long-term push out is corrected in the next refinancing.
I appreciate your answer. Last question, I'll be real quick. So Patty, you had also said that the second part of the recommendation would be more who of us to make if we had plans for that money. And it was something that would be a liquidable one-time payment of, like we said, a couple different options. Since Rita and Nathan are going to recommend this, this question is for them. So Nathan and Rita, do you have plans for this money, since the recommendation by the business administrator was that we should not do it unless we have plans for it? And I don't want to put words in Patty's mouth. Correct me if I'm wrong, Patty.
I would only do this if the board was committed to only spending the funds on one-time expenses, or utilizing the funds to maintain, the state recommended level of reserves.
Right. So not to cut you off, with that in mind, do you have any recommendations how to use this money? I mean, I know that you've done your due diligence. Is there something that our district needs that you would say that it would be best spent in a liquidable form? I mean, I know some school districts give their kids certain assets so that if they do go to all cyber, you could pay for laptops or whatever. I know we helped our kids with the pandemic. Is there anything there that you would suggest using this for moving forward?
I mean, my suggestion would be to, get your fund balance to a level that, the state recommends, but also develop a technology plan for the district that I think is lacking. And that would be my recommendation.
All right. And lastly, Patty, I want to extend a good farewell to you and wish you luck in your next endeavor. And you did a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Patty, I'll turn it back over to you.
I know we have a board meeting starting, so if there's nothing else, if the finance committee would like to end the finance meeting so that we can move into the board meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, everyone.